In a busy market in Nigeria, there was a man named Emeka. He was a butcher, which means he cut and sold meat. Emeka worked hard every day, but he had many problems. The market was full of other butchers. They all wanted to sell their meat, and this made it hard for Emeka to make enough money. He worried a lot about how he would feed his family and pay for their home. Emeka had a wife named Joy and a young son. His son went to school, but the school fees were very high. Emeka didn't know how he would pay for them. He wanted his son to learn and have a good future, but it seemed impossible with the little money he made. Every morning, Emeka woke up early and went to the market. He set up his stall, made sure his knives were sharp, and waited for people to buy his meat. But often, people would walk past his stall and buy from other butchers. This made Emeka feel sad and worried. At home, Joy tried to make Emeka feel better. She would say, "Don't worry, my husband. God's time is the best. If we wait, things will get better." Emeka wanted to believe her, but it was hard. Every day seemed to bring new problems. When Emeka came home at night, he was always tired and sad. He looked at Joy and his son and felt like he was letting them down. He thought to himself, "How can I take care of my family if I can't even sell enough meat?" Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. Nothing got better. Emeka felt stuck. He couldn't see a way to make more money or give his family a better life. He started to lose hope. One hot day, Emeka sat at his stall in the market. He hadn't sold much meat, and he was feeling very sad. He put his head in his hands and almost cried. He didn't know what to do anymore. Just then, he heard someone call his name. "Emeka. Is that you, my old friend?" Emeka looked up and saw Chidi, a friend from when he was young. He hadn't seen Chidi in many years. Chidi looked very different now. He wore nice clothes and a gold watch. He looked rich and happy. Emeka felt ashamed of his dirty clothes and the flies buzzing around his meat. "Chidi, what are you doing here?" Emeka asked, trying to sound happy. Chidi smiled and said, "I'm visiting my family." "But look at you, still selling meat after all these years. How is your business going?" Emeka didn't want to lie to his old friend. "It's very hard, Chidi," he said. "There are too many butchers here. I can barely make enough money to feed my family." Chidi's smile went away. He looked serious. "I'm sorry to hear that, my friend," he said. "But maybe I can help you? I know someone who might be able to change your life." Emeka was surprised. "Really? Who?" Chidi leaned in close and spoke quietly. "There's a powerful herbalist in the next village. He has helped many people become rich. Maybe he can help you too." Emeka felt both excited and scared. He had heard stories about herbalists. Some people said they could make you rich, but others said they were dangerous. "I don't know, Chidi," Emeka said. "Is it safe?" Chidi put his hand on Emeka's shoulder. "Look at me," he said. "I went to see him last year, and now I'm doing very well. Just think about it. Here's where you can find him if you want to go." Chidi wrote an address on a piece of paper and gave it to Emeka. Then he said goodbye and left. Emeka stared at the paper in his hand. He thought about his struggles, his son's school fees, and Joy's words about waiting for God's time. Could this herbalist really be the answer to his prayers? That night, Emeka couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the herbalist. Joy noticed that something was wrong. "What's the matter, my husband?" she asked. "You seem worried." Emeka didn't want to tell her about the herbalist. "It's nothing," he said. "I'm just thinking about work." Joy held his hand. "Remember," she said, "God's time is the best. We must be patient." Emeka nodded, but inside, he wasn't sure. Maybe he had been patient for too long. Maybe it was time to do something different. For the next few days, Emeka couldn't stop thinking about the herbalist. He would take out the paper with the address, look at it, then put it away. He prayed for God to tell him what to do, but he didn't feel like he got an answer. Finally, after another day when he sold very little meat, Emeka made up his mind. He would go see the herbalist. Early the next morning, before Joy woke up, Emeka left for the next village. It was a long walk, and he felt tired. As he walked, he started to have doubts. Was he doing the right thing? What would Joy think if she knew? At last, Emeka reached a small hut at the edge of the village. There were strange marks painted on the walls. The air smelled funny, like herbs and smoke. Emeka's heart was beating fast as he knocked on the door. An old man with very bright eyes opened the door. "I've been waiting for you, Emeka," he said in a rough voice. Emeka was shocked. How did the old man know his name? He hadn't told anyone he was coming. The herbalist invited Emeka inside. The hut was dark and full of strange things. There were jars with weird liquids and dried plants hanging from the ceiling. "You want to be rich and successful," the herbalist said. He didn't ask it like a question. Emeka nodded. His mouth felt very dry. "Yes," he said. "Can you help me?" The old man smiled, showing yellow teeth. "I can," he said. "But everything has a price. Are you ready to pay it?" Emeka thought about his family and how much they needed money. "Yes," he said. "I'll do whatever it takes." The herbalist's eyes seemed to glow. "Good," he said. "I will give you something that will make you very rich. But in return, you must give up something very important." Emeka's heart was beating very fast. "What do you mean?" he asked. Then the herbalist told Emeka the terrible deal. If Emeka wanted to be rich, his wife Joy would have to suffer. Every time Emeka sold meat and made money, Joy would lose something. She might not be able to walk, or see, or talk. Emeka was horrified. "No," he said. "I can't do that to my wife." The herbalist shrugged. "Then go home," he said. "Stay poor. But remember, your son needs school fees." Emeka stood up to leave. But then he stopped. He thought about Joy's words, "God's time is the best." But hadn't he waited long enough? And maybe, once he had enough money, he could find a way to make Joy better. He could be smarter than this old man. With a heavy heart, Emeka agreed to the herbalist's deal. They did a strange ceremony, and then the herbalist gave Emeka a small charm to keep in his pocket. As Emeka walked home, he tried to tell himself he had done the right thing. "I'll make us rich," he thought. "Then I'll find a way to break this curse. Joy will understand. It's for our family." But deep down, Emeka knew he had made a big mistake. He just didn't know how big it would turn out to be. When Emeka got back to the market, everything changed. People started buying his meat like never before. He sold out every day and made more money than he ever had. At first, Emeka was very happy. He could pay his son's school fees and buy nice things for his family. But then, strange things started happening to Joy. One day, Joy said she couldn't feel her left hand. A few days later, her right leg became weak. She started having trouble walking. Emeka was scared. He knew this was because of the deal he made with the herbalist. But he didn't tell Joy. He thought if he could make enough money fast, he could fix everything. As Emeka got richer, people in the village started to notice. They wondered how the poor butcher suddenly had so much money. Some people started saying bad things about Emeka. They thought he must be doing something wrong to get so rich so fast. Joy was confused and upset about what was happening to her body. She asked Emeka if they should see a doctor, but Emeka always made excuses. He felt so guilty that he couldn't look Joy in the eye anymore. Emeka bought a big house and nice clothes. But he wasn't happy. Every time he looked at Joy, he saw how much she was suffering. He knew it was all his fault. One night, Emeka sat alone in his new big house. He looked at all the nice things he had bought. But instead of feeling happy, he started to cry. He realized that all this money and all these things weren't worth anything if Joy was sick and unhappy. Emeka knew he had to do something to fix his big mistake. But he didn't know what to do. He was afraid to tell Joy the truth, but he was even more afraid of what might happen if he didn't. As Emeka sat there crying, he didn't know that things were going to get even worse before they got better. His journey was far from over, and the hardest part was yet to come. Months passed, and Emeka's life changed a lot. He was now very rich. He had a big house, fancy cars, and lots of money in the bank. But he wasn't happy at all. Every day, Emeka watched his wife Joy get worse. She couldn't walk anymore. Her hands didn't work well. She had trouble seeing and speaking. Joy, who used to be so cheerful and full of life, now spent her days quiet and sad. Emeka knew all of this was his fault. Every time he sold meat and made money, Joy lost something. He wanted to stop, but he was afraid. What if they became poor again? In the village, people started talking about Emeka. They whispered when he walked by. Some said he must be doing something bad to get so rich so fast. Others said he was using dark magic. Emeka, who used to be respected, now felt like everyone was against him. One day, Emeka went to the market. As he was selling meat, he heard two women talking. "Did you hear about Emeka's wife?" one woman said. "They say she's very sick." "Yes," the other woman replied. "And look at Emeka, getting richer while his wife suffers. It's not right." Emeka felt sick to his stomach. He closed his shop early and went home. When he got home, he found Joy sitting in a chair, staring out the window. She couldn't turn to look at him. Emeka's heart broke. "My wife," he said softly. "I'm so sorry. This is all my fault." Joy tried to speak, but her words came out slurred. "What do you mean?" she asked. Emeka couldn't hold it in anymore. He fell to his knees and told Joy everything. He told her about the herbalist, the curse, and how their wealth came at the cost of her health. At first, Joy was very angry. She tried to yell at Emeka, but she couldn't make the words come out right. Then she started to cry. Emeka cried too. "I thought I could fix it," he said. "I thought if I made enough money, I could find a way to make you better. But I was wrong. I'm so sorry, Joy. Can you ever forgive me?" Joy didn't answer for a long time. Finally, she nodded slowly. "I forgive you," she said with difficulty. "But what will we do now?" Emeka stood up. "I'm going back to the herbalist," he said. "I'll make him undo this curse, no matter what it takes." The next day, Emeka went back to the herbalist's hut. The old man was waiting for him. "I knew you would come back," the herbalist said with a smile. "Please," Emeka begged. "Undo this curse. I'll give you all my money." just make my wife well again." The herbalist shook his head. "It's not that simple," he said. "The curse can be broken, but there's a price." "What price?" Emeka asked. "I'll pay anything." The herbalist looked at Emeka with his bright eyes. "You can take your wife's place," he said. "All her sickness will go to you. She will be healthy again, but you will be crippled." Emeka didn't hesitate. "I'll do it," he said. "Just tell me how." The herbalist gave Emeka a small bottle with a strange liquid inside. "Give this to your wife," he said. "When she drinks it, her illness will pass to you." Emeka took the bottle and hurried home. He found Joy and told her what the herbalist had said. "No," Joy said. "I won't let you do this. We'll find another way." But Emeka had made up his mind. "This is my fault," he said. "I have to make it right." Before Joy could stop him, Emeka opened the bottle and drank the liquid himself. For a moment, nothing happened. Then suddenly, Emeka felt a terrible pain all over his body. He fell to the ground, unable to move. At the same time, Joy felt strength returning to her body. She stood up, something she hadn't been able to do for months. "Emeka," she cried, running to her husband. "What have you done?" Emeka smiled weakly. "I've made things right," he said. From that day on, everything changed again. Joy was healthy, but now Emeka couldn't walk or use his hands properly. Their wealth quickly disappeared as they spent money trying to find a cure for Emeka. They had to sell their big house and fancy cars. They moved back to their old, small house. Emeka couldn't work as a butcher anymore. Times were hard again. But strangely, Emeka felt more at peace than he had in a long time. Yes, he was sick and they were poor again. But Joy was healthy, and that was what mattered most to him. One day, Joy said, "Let's go to the church. Maybe they can help." Emeka agreed. Joy pushed him in a wheelchair to the local church. The pastor listened to their story and agreed to pray for them. As the pastor prayed, something amazing happened. Emeka felt a warmth spread through his body. Slowly, he found he could move his fingers. Then his hands. Then his legs. By the end of the prayer, Emeka could stand up. It seemed like a miracle. "God has given you a second chance," the pastor said. "Use it wisely." Emeka and Joy left the church, both walking on their own feet. They were crying, but this time they were tears of joy. Over the next few weeks, Emeka got stronger. He decided to go back to being a butcher, but this time, he did things differently. He worked hard, but he was honest. He didn't try to get rich quickly. He was happy with what he earned each day. Joy stood by his side, helping him in the shop. They worked together, just like they used to before all the trouble started. Slowly, people in the village started to trust Emeka again. They saw how he had changed. They saw how he and Joy worked hard and were kind to everyone. One day, a woman came to buy meat from Emeka. It was one of the women he had heard talking in the market months ago. "Emeka," she said, "I owe you an apology. We all said bad things about you. But now we see that you are a good man. You and Joy are an example to us all." Emeka smiled. "Thank you," he said. "But I'm not special. I just learned an important lesson. Money isn't everything. Family, honesty, and doing the right thing, these are what really matter." Years passed. Emeka and Joy never became rich again, but they were happy. They had enough to live on, and their son did well in school. They even had another child, a little girl. They named her Blessing because they felt she was a gift from God. Emeka often told his story to others, especially young people. He wanted them to learn from his mistakes. Don't be in a hurry to get rich, he would say. Work hard, be honest, and take care of your family. That's the real wealth in life. One evening, Emeka and Joy sat outside their small house. Their children were playing nearby. Emeka looked at Joy and smiled. "Do you ever wish we were rich again?" he asked. Joy shook her head. "No," she said. "We have everything we need right here." Emeka nodded. He watched the sun setting over the village. He thought about everything that had happened, the bad choices he had made, the pain they had gone through, and the second chance they had been given. He realized that he was truly rich now. Not with money, but with love, family, and peace of mind. And that, he knew, was worth more than all the money in the world.